Okay. Hi folks, welcome to another episode of Learn to Paint TV. Rod Moore from the Learn to Paint Academy here with you again. This week we're going to do a nice little country scene. I was driving out in the country and I came across this little scene of a field with some cows and a nice little backdrop with a mountain and a little farmhouse off in the distance there. So as I said, I was just driving down the road and I saw this and I like the mountain backdrop and that row of trees there with that little farmhouse and a couple of cows in the foreground. As usual, we're going to use the Moore method of painting, 3 steps, which I'll walk you through, 3 basic colours, plus a couple of booster colours, and essentially 3 brushes. First step is I'll just switch my brush around in some water. We'll take some of that ultramarine blue there, and a little bit of the alizarin crimson, mix those together to get a ink-like consistency. Okay, like so. So it wants to be fairly runny because in our drawing we don't want to have thick paint in our drawing. Let's grab my photo there. So I've printed out my own photo reference. As you can see, you've got it on the screen there. And first step is really identifying big shapes, and the way I start that usually is with the horizon line. Now this photo is, well, you can see it on your screen, the photo is longer than my actual canvas or my board. So I've got a 12-inch by 16-inch board. It's a little bit more compressed, which means I'm going to cut off the ends a little bit, okay? So I need you to know that, but the horizon line is just running up above that halfway mark, somewhere around about there, okay? And it doesn't have to be perfect at this stage, or at any stage really. Painting's all about just getting it how you think it should be. So this hill's going to run up here. We'll pop a little bit of a peak around about there, and then it's going to flatten out there. And it's around about where that peak is that we have this little building, this little farmhouse. It's like a 2-story Queenslander. Okay. We'll pop that in there. And of course that needs to have trees. And we just want to break that ridge line there of the mountain, okay, with our trees. So we'll pop some trees in there, pop another one in there, which will cast a shadow out that way. Okay, so we're just, for the moment, just a little rectangle for the farmhouse, maybe a touch wider. And that'll of course have shadow underneath it. And then we just need a little row of trees. Don't make them too high here. Let's just get in a nice little row of trees. And we'll drop back to our mountain there. We'll get another couple of trees in through there. And then there's another little mountain range that runs sort of out that way. Okay, I'll bring that one through to there. Not a problem at all. So the next step is to get these cows in. So the cows is going to be one cow that's going to be sitting, or standing rather, around about there. So I'll just pop his shadow in. And then the other 2 cows are going to be slightly smaller, and they're going to be further away. Well, the reason why they're slightly smaller is they're just a little bit further away. So I'm popping in a little bit of shadow for where their bodies might be, okay? And if we get, there's the underbelly, there's the back, and that runs down. The cows are a little bit sort of squared off, like little boxes. Okay, and then that runs to there, and then that runs to there, and then his head there. Okay, that runs underneath there, and then we've got a couple of legs there. Okay, something like that. So get a little outline of him there. And this one here is going to be standing on a slightly different angle. That head's there. Okay. So it's got to be smaller because it's further away. We don't want, 3 cows that are all identical size. So, okay. what I need to do is establish a values pattern, or value scale here. And normally what we would do is look for our darkest darks, okay? But because most of those darks are going to be off in this distance here, they're not going to be as dark as how we'd normally paint them. This all needs to be set back into the distance. So where I might start then is with these two mountains, okay? So if we get those mountains right, then we know how dark to make these trees here, okay? So these mountains need to be predominantly a bluey grey, okay, here and here. This one's set further back. So I'll just get a little bit of thinner. So if we're talking about a bluey grey, we've got to start with blue, okay? And then once we've got our blue, what we need to do is to grey it. So we grey it by adding in a little bit of the red, alizarin crimson, a little bit of the yellow ochre. We take those two, we mix that in, and that will grey back that blue. Now it's gone a little bit onto the green side because I had touched too much of the yellow ochre in there. So add a little bit more red in, and we'll get it back to the blue side. Okay. Now, the problem with this mix right now is that it's too strong a value, it's too dark, okay? And we're talking about something off in the distance. So what I need to do is I'll just take a little touch of the thinner. I just need to get a little touch of the white, not too much. And then let's have a look. And now you can see, okay, so that's probably fairly blue, but I've not got a feeling we might better run with that. I'll just go a little bit lighter. Now, because I'm using water mixable oils, they will dry exactly as we put them up on the board. If you're using acrylics, they're going to dry just that little bit darker, so you need to go a tone lighter than what you think. Okay, let's just test that. I'm looking at that and I'm thinking it's a little bit too dark still. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit more white. I'm going to take a little touch more blue. That shift. Okay, now that could be too light. No, actually, up against the white, it's not too bad. So I'll lay that in. Okay, I've got a tree there, so I won't go around that tree. Got trees in there. Now, one thing we haven't talked about yet is the source of light, where the light's coming from. And it looks to me like the light's coming in from the left-hand side. So that will be important info for us as we progress this painting. So for now, I'm just getting colour down. Okay. Getting an interesting shape in those, in the mountains there. I'll just run a little bit of colour in where that tree is going to be. Now, because I use a limited palette for a good proportion of the work, it's always easy to know exactly how to get back to a tone that we need. Okay, so this one's slightly greener. Didn't have as much red in it, but it still works in the overall look and feel. And if you're concerned that it doesn't, just take a bit of it and pop some of it in and create a bush in front of some of the trees that are already there, and then you've got colour harmony straight away by doing that. Okay, so if you don't mix exactly the same colour, it's not the end of the world. Okay. The key thing is it needs to be a little bit darker in value than those background mountains, a little bit warmer, just so that these trees come forward of the mountain, which, as you can clearly see, they are. Now I've mixed this mix up just slightly darker in value and also a little bit warmer, just around that house there. It's all good. So I'll take another big flat brush here and I just want to get in a earthy tone in here. Now I'll get some water. I'm going to make it predominantly yellow ochre. Oh, that's a lot of yellow ochre wood. And some alizarin crimson in there. Wasn't watching what I was doing when I added that in. And some titanium white up one end of it. Okay, so I've got a couple of different values there. There we go. And I'll get some of our thinner here. Switch that in, get that paint nice and loose. You could use water if you want. I've used water in other episodes, as you've probably seen. But today I just thought I'd try the medium out. And it probably maintains the strength of the pigment a little bit better than using water. And for big areas like this, maybe that matters. But this is just a block in, this is the underpainting. So I don't know if you need to fuss too much with mediums. Give them a try. I think it's probably the best advice. Keep this fairly thin though, because we want to add sort of greeny grasses over the top of this. So maybe we'll just add a bit of water just to thin that paint down. So that will give it a chance to dry before we tackle step 3. Okay. Now if I blur some of these edges, good and well. Okay. I'll just make sure I cut in around our little moo cows. You can see there's no right or wrong way to paint this underpainting in. Get a variety of brush strokes, don't make them boring, all the same sort of stroke. If you use a bit of variety, especially as you come into the foreground, the foreground you can get away with some more vertical strokes like that because we'll put some vertical grasses and things in there. One thing I will recommend with the foreground, if we just warm it up slightly, we'll just get some a little bit more of that alizarin crimson into the mix. Because warm colours come forward, cool colours recede in the background. That's why our mountains are blue. And we're using a warm, earthy tone for our field. Take some thinner on the brush here and get into this blue, mix it up nice and runny, and then let's just, too much thinner in the brush or water, not a problem. Okay, we'll just start working that in. Notice I'm using a variety of strokes, nice big brush marks there. I'll take it about 2/3 of the way across the top there because we want to shift the tone a little bit as we get further over. So then I'll come in, get a little touch more thinner again and get into this lighter value here. And now I just need to concentrate around the tree. Don't want to clip the dark of that tree if I can help it at this stage, because it's going to be wet and that will just cause me problems. Okay, now if you're using acrylics you could let it dry off if you wanted to. Where it comes into this mountain, not as much of a problem because it's closer to the same value. Okay, don't worry about blending it just yet, just get that second line of this lighter value in first, in the right hand side. Well, the sun's coming from over on this left hand side, sorry, and we want to give the feel of there being a bit of light over that way. So we'll take the yellow there, the titanium white, a little bit of the yellow ochre and a little bit of the cadmium yellow. Just Just mix that in together. Such a nice light value, like so. Maybe a touch more of the cadmium yellow light. Whew, man, that's strong, isn't it? Let's get some more white into that. A little touch of the thinner. Okay, and I'm just going to work that in. So it's like a bit of a sun glow. Maybe it's getting later in the afternoon. And it's probably a bit too strong, but I'll pop it up, and if we need to adjust it when we come back and assess it later on, we can easily do that. And so I'm painting it up to the edge of the blue. Now I'll pull the paint out of my brush, a bit of paper towel. What I want to do is just integrate them. Okay, so I'm just pulling brush through the paper towel. I don't want any water in here, so I'm just using the paper towel. And I'm just going to just feather them in together, just a light touch. Okay, so pull some of that blue into the sun part and some of the sun out into the blue. Doesn't have to be perfect, so I don't paint it perfectly flat. We're going to pop in the cows now. We're just going to pop them in a little bit blocky, and it's really about getting the shadow and the light side of those cows in. And you can see that there's a nice dark shadow, and then there's a warm browny tone for the bits that aren't in shadow. So we're just going to block those in as our starting point as we get underway with step 3 here. So that shadow tone is, it's pretty much our darkest dark. So I'll take our ultramarine blue and our alizarin crimson and just a touch of cad red into that mix. Get a little bit of the thinner on the brush, not too much. Okay, we'll mix those together. A little touch of the cadmium yellow just to push it even darker, just to take the take out the purple of it. Okay, now looking, I'm just going to grab my photo, excuse me. Looking at our main cow there, he is in shadow. His whole head's in shadow. Up the back of his neck to around about there. Drops down a bit there, so we'll fill in that neck. That leg. Okay. Halfway to his belly. Just doing what I'm doing is just working out, okay, where's the shadow? So I can see that there's shadow there. And then down that part of that leg, and there's a tail there as well. Now I'll bring the grass up around here, but I think we've got the angle right. So the rest of that is in, rest of the cow there is in a lighter tone. So what I'll do, I'll take a second brush. Okay, I'll keep 2 brushes, one for my dark and one for my light. So for the lights, I'm going to use this Neath synthetic brush. It's basically a long hair, a hog hair bristle brush will work fine. And the tone that we want is to be quite a warm one. So I'll take our cadmium red and our cadmium yellow, which should give us a nice orange tone, like so. But we don't want it that orange. A little bit of alizarin crimson in there will just knock it back. Now it's probably too red. A little touch of yellow ochre again, we'll just grey it back. And look, that's still too red, so it's a bit browner than that. So a little touch of the cadmium, the ultramarine blue will start to get us there. Okay, I think it needs to be a little redder. It's kind of a burnt sienna colour. So if you've got burnt sienna, you could fast track this process. by using that. I prefer to mix my colours. Now that looks a bit red there, but if I pop a little bit of white into that, I suspect that that's going to be close to what we want. Okay, see that with a little bit of white? Let's just try that. Now it'll be helpful to have a touch of thinner in there, not too much. Light is just there. Lighter than the back of this cow. But I'll put a little bit more white in there for the moment. Let's just try that. It's better. Dark needs to just be lightened ever so slightly. See that? Because these cows are a bit further away, so let us come in here. Got a lot of dark on this one. Okay. So it's always a good idea to get back to your tone that you were using in the background. So you can see there, that's pretty much it. Tidy up a few little spots there. Don't have to get it 100% exact, but you know, if you can get it close, and that then gives you a good starting point. So I'm probably a little bit light there, but that's okay. It gives you a good starting point then to find the highlight tone, right? So the highlight tone is usually, you get to your original tone, then you want to lighten it off. That's why I've got the white, and then you want to warm it up slightly. A little bit of yellow ochre, a little bit of red. Okay, mix those in, and that will give us a warmer, lighter version of that value. Let's go a touch yellower. Okay, and then light over here. So all we're going to do is just indicate it along the ridges here. not going to paint every tree, but you know, it's the tree tops that are actually catching that light, isn't it? It'd be disastrous to try and paint every tree unless you have a magnifying glass or extremely good eyes, right? But it just needs a little touch along there. Soften it into the blue that's there. It's an olivey green there, right? It's a fairly light value, but it probably will go well with the context of the fact that it's out in the distance there a bit more. And then I'll also take ultramarine blue again, and I'll mix some cadmium yellow with that. It'll give us a punchier green. See that? It's a more vibrant green. However, we'll just soften it out, we'll lighten it off rather. A little bit of titanium white. Now, can you see the difference between those two? This is a bluier green, more of a khaki khaki olivey. This is more of a vibrant green here. Got a little pinhead of the red. We'll just grey it off a little bit as well. So what have we got? We're going to have one that's a bit more in the foreground here, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to shape up the side of these trees that's catching light. Because really, as painters, that's all we paint is light. But there's no point doing it the same colour as the tree here, right? So we'll just lighten it, we'll darken it off a little bit, and then we'll just lighten a few little spots of it, just so it stands out a bit against the background mountain. There we go. What about this one here? Well, let's give this a fair bit of extra light. So we'll take some extra yellow ochre, we'll take a bit more white. Maybe we need it to glow a little, so a little touch of the red, just to warm it up a touch more. Okay, and then see how that tone is going to show the light coming through it almost. And then as we come down the tree, we don't want it to maintain that, so then we'll just push into that slightly darker version in here. Because it's going to be a little bit cooler down in the shadows there, or you know, a bit further away from the light source. We get some white into there, some blue. So it'll be a shadow on the cool side. Okay, get my glasses. Okay, I've left a little tiny bit there for a bit of extra light. And then I think a roof colour, we'll do a brown, so red and yellow. Well, actually, that red might work, mightn't it? So I'm changing it up from the photo. Like so. And let us now take some white. Just lighten that right off. We'll get a bit of the cad red. And another chunk of that white. There we go. And clean the brush. I'm going to get a chunk of white for that shadow tone. Lighten that off. Okay. And I think we need to get that dark back under. Like so. Take that lightest light. Put it up on stilts. It was fairly dry, and I want to try and maintain that feeling, right? So I've mixed up a green here, and I'm going to now just work on getting this grass in, and I'm going to leave plenty of that underpainting to come through. Okay, I'm going to be really careful about just flicking up some bits of that green into the shadows as well. Now I put that shadow in before thinking the light was coming from the other way. I'm not going to, so it's obviously, you know, I was meant to represent a tree that was out here off screen. I'm not going to lose that shadow though. I just won't make it as obvious. It could be just a divot in the land. Could have been a dried up old dam possibly for the cows. Who knows, right? But I kind of like having a little bit of patch of it there. So I shall leave bits of it there. Using a bigger brush for things like this as much as I can, but I also recognize that I like to get under the bodies of the cows there. I'm going to need that smaller brush in a moment. That's fine. Okay, so now that I'm getting really into this foreground here, I can really punch up the colours of this grass and put more movement and so on in there. So let's get some blue and green, a little pinhead of the red. Okay, let's get some of that in. Don't make it too big all of a sudden. I just want to get a little bit more movement. I'll get some dark passage over here. Well, there you go, friends. I think that's a finished painting, or a finished little demo, and I'm quite happy with the way it's come up. Got this nice proportion between the foreground cows and then the background. It's an interesting little composition because it's got that higher horizon line, which gives us plenty of foreground, but then you've got that little building, the little farmhouse and the shed and the fencing and everything down there, which makes some interest. And also we've got those trees that are poking out a little bit higher, catching a bit of light, and a variety of different greens in there, but they're not greens that are competing with the greens in the foreground. And as you can see, as I've come closer in here, I've warmed up the greens in here, especially just underneath the cows, to give them something to munch on. And, you know, it's not a bad little demo. It's certainly one that you'll have a lot of fun painting it if you like little landscape scenes like I do. And what I'd challenge you to do is, like, I was just driving around in the country and I saw this little scene. I took the photo and I've been, you know, just waiting for the right moment to paint it, and I'm pretty happy the way it's turned out as a demo. So I challenge you to keep your eye open when you're driving around. You just never know when you're going to see something that is worth photographing and turning into a fun little painting. This is a good little sketch. It could be easily blown up into a bigger painting, and you know, you could really then put in more animals in the field and a few more details. But as a little demonstration painting here for you today, I'm pretty happy with it, and I hope you have a go at it. Hope you've enjoyed this week's episode. Make sure you drop by the Learn to Paint Academy. I'll put the web address underneath me here, www.learntopaint.academy. And when you're on the site there, register for the free course if you haven't done so already. And in the free course that we give you, I go into the More method of painting in a lot more detail. 3 steps, 3 colors, 3 brushes, and you can see how you can create a great little result with that approach. So it's my free gift to you. Just thank you for dropping by the Learn to Paint Academy. And check out every episode of Learn to Paint TV. And I hope to see you next week on Learn to Paint TV. Cheers for now.